Okay, so this will be a different video. This will be about being set aside from before you were sort of born by God for your task. As you can see, I got my new glasses, which finally came, which are great. So, as some of you know, I said I came from a broken background, but my Grammy shared with me, I guess a few days ago, some truths that stunned me. Well, not really stunned me, but kind of made me appreciate her even more, but also made me appreciate God, okay, even more, and how just amazing he truly is, and how when he has a purpose for you, he'll set you aside. So, many of you know I was born back in the 90s, and so my mother at the time wasn't married to my father. I don't believe they were married yet. So she went to the doctor, and I don't know what doctor it was, but the doctor advised her that, I'm going to use the word here so YouTube doesn't demonetize me, but the doctor told her that she should remove me and not allow me to be born. The doctor said I could be born disabled, or I could, die within a day or two later, because sometimes that happens. But while she was, thinking of this, and my father really said it was up to her, so he really didn't, say much. And so this is where my grandmother came in. Now, my grandpa and Grammy raised 5 kids, and they went through 2 or 3, miscarriages, 2 of them, and one, their baby was born, and he died a day or 2 later. And they still stayed together, and they're like 60-some years this year still married together. So that never drove them apart. So what this is my mother at the time was undecided, and my Grammy, who's a Christian, which is great, she stepped in, and this is what she said to my mother. She said, don't do anything like that, okay? She said, don't get rid of him. She said, allow him to be born. And said, okay? She said, leave it in God's hands, okay? So she said, whether he's disabled, or whether he dies a day or 2 after he's born, she said, that is up to God, and that is in God's hands, because he's God's child. And she is very adamant against it. She does not like the A word, which you guys know what that is, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get demonetized. And basically, she said, God controls his life. God has his fate, is God's child, and you will have him, and whatever happens, happens. So technically, I would be considered not really a miracle birth, but I was born, and there's nothing wrong with me. I was fully healthy. The doctor, I don't know what kind of doctor it was. Maybe it was a agent of the enemy trying to, snuff me out before I even knew what my full potential was, before I was even born. I don't know. But the doctor, I don't think he practices anymore, but I'm glad that my mother didn't listen to him, and that God used my Grammy to spare my life. He set me aside even before I was born. That he says that I knew you when you were in the womb. I formed you and set you aside for a purpose. So everybody has a purpose in their life. You choose to be born again and follow God, you'll do that purpose, or you choose not to follow God, and that's your free will. So quite essentially, I went many years, I didn't know this. Okay, this was just recently, she told me a while ago. They never mentioned any of this to me, and it was just, it made me pause and just thank God even more, because he's truly had his hand on my life the entire time, from the time before I was even born. I didn't even know it, but yeah, God was protecting me. He set me aside, and I'm grateful, thankful to my Grammy for stepping in and not allowing that to happen. And shortly before I was born, my mother and father married, and my father was not a Christian, didn't believe in God, didn't do anything, and as many of you know, part of the broken background was he left when I was 2. So he just flat out left, and my mother got MS shortly after. My brother was born. About 6 months later, she developed it. And it's a degenerative disease that destroys your mind and just takes away all your functions. And you can research, there's lots of types of it, but she had one of the really bad types. And long story short, reconciliation happened years ago with my father. Well, it took years because he was never in my life, never involved with me at all, or my brother. My brother tried to reach out a few times, and he never responded, so my brother developed a hatred for him, and he still hates him, because my brother's not a Christian. He doesn't like God, or, he doesn't even like me talking about God around him because it just irritates him. And he developed a hatred for him, and even though our father passed, he still hates him. Now, I don't consider him my father because he was never there, and a father is somebody that is there to raise you, but mine ran away from his responsibilities. So I consider Jesus my brother, and I consider God my father. Now, adopted into his family, and he's my father. So the reconciliation part, which is really interesting, is that God said, we got to put this to peace, okay? And God said, I'm going to reconcile you with your father. And so my father, disappeared, didn't know where he was. And so apparently he was with a harvest house somewhere. And then a guy reached out because he happened to see, when I used to be on Facebook, he's seen the name. And it was the same name, so he just reached out and said, hey, do you know this Alex Howick? And I said, no, Alex. And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, just because he got my last name. Who is he? I'm like, no, I don't know him. He said, oh, well, I think he's your father. And so found out eventually that, yeah, he was. But the reconciliation part of this was, although he was never in our lives, and he was an alcoholic, and he smoked a lot, I guess, but he'd recently found God. Okay, God had saved him, had made him born again, and he was doing what I would consider reconciliation, right? He was trying to reconcile his mistakes, as God will make you, do that, confront stuff, and he was reaching out to this guy to make amends. He never said why he wasn't there, but the reconciliation, knowing that he was saved, and of course, years ago, I'd forgiven him, because like I said, I was born again, and I forgave him. Like, I never knew him, so I didn't hold the hatred in my heart. I know, and so he he passed about probably a year and a half or so ago. The hospital contacted me and said, what do you want us to do? You're the next of kin. And I basically said to them, so does he have anybody there? And said he has a girlfriend that he's been with for like 2 or 3 years. And I basically said to them, it's her choice. Okay, he's not my father. He was never in my life. I'm not going to have this control over him because I wasn't going to make the call. And so I said, it is in her interest. She can deal with whatever. Okay? And I didn't deal with it. And then it was 2 hours later, received a phone call saying that he'd passed. Now, see, I can't really be sad about it or emotional because I never knew him. So how can you feel sad for somebody you never knew? And the reconciliation that God did was that he reached out, and I knew that he was saved. He was born again. So I know he'll be in heaven someday. And that reconciliation was he was saved. And God reconciled me to where I had no hatred in my heart towards him. I mean, I can't. Like, how can I hate somebody? Jesus doesn't hate him. He saved him. And so even at birth, and you can see I was set aside for a purpose, and it took me a long time. It took me a long time to accept my call that God had for me on my life. And just recently, I just wanted to share that with you, that I was almost not around. And I know, as many of you know, I got to a dark spot a few years ago where I almost took myself out. So the enemy's tried multiple times to take me out. Like, he's tried quite a few times to just X me out of it. And I'm just going to keep following God, keep trusting him, keep making these videos. And I just wanted to share a little bit of a background with you. But basically, yeah, that's sort of my background, a little bit of it. I just want you to know that God has a purpose for you, okay? No matter what is in, as long as you surrender, trust and follow him, he will use you for it. And he sets you aside at birth. So for people that say you're a clump of cells, you're not. You're special, you're made by God, fearfully and wonderfully made in his image, and he has a plan for everybody. So I just wanted to share that, and that if God sets you aside, which he does, he will. And he's always had his hand on my life. Even when I was a prodigal, he always protected me and guided me and just kept me from dangers. And now he's using me to make these videos and to advance his kingdom, which is just amazing. And it's just awesome. Well, so I'm up here in a field. There's the view I'm looking at. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful view. So I'll leave the video off here. This is A Voice in the Wilderness, soldier, bondservant of Christ. Signing off. Whenever you see this, have a blessed day or night. And stay safe in these dark and crazy times. And never let anybody tell you you don't have a purpose. And never let anybody tell you you're not worth anything, because God has a purpose for you. Okay? So don't ever let anybody tell you something otherwise. Look at me. I should not be here. The enemy tried to take me out. The enemy tried to have me take myself out. So trust me. I'm going to keep doing what God wants. Keep following him. So if he has a call on your life, step into it. Embrace it. And don't let fear and the enemy hold you back. Anyways, leave the video here. As I said, did my outro. There's a little bonus content. I will see you in the next one. Have a blessed day. Amen.